Hello and welcome to Diecast Diaries. I'm Dan, and in my last video we had a look at the Matchbox Superfast military collection from the 1970s. So I thought it'd be interesting today to have a look at where it all started with military models for Matchbox, and that's with the range they produced sort of from the late 1950s through to about the mid to late 60s. Now Matchbox, obviously as most people know, kind of started producing diecast models in 1953. But it wasn't until 1958 when they first started producing some of their military range. Three models came out that year, with the rest following the next year. Now, it's fair to say quite a few of the Matchbox models were clearly based on dinky models from their military range of the same time. Not a bad thing, and Matchbox did quite a nice job of representing sort of miniature versions of them. It is also worth pointing out that as opposed to the Superfast range, which, as I say, I covered in my last video, at least with these ones, they are all genuine military vehicles. There are no kind of repainted civilian ones in this lineup or anything like that. They are also, with two exceptions, they are all post-war vehicles, what would have been contemporary vehicles when the range came out. And again, excluding the two I've just mentioned, which date from World War II, all the other vehicles, as well as being post-war and contemporary, are British as well. But it's actually two of the two World War II vehicles and also the two non-British vehicles that we start with. So in 1958, Matchbox brought out this one, which is the M3 personnel carrier, M3 half-track, sort of widely known as. Now, I should at least point out now that the American half-track, the M3, all its different derivatives, it's always been my favourite military vehicle. So really pleased that Matchbox decided to do one. But I have to say, it's quite an unusual vehicle for them to kind of choose, certainly as the first one. As I say, with virtually all the other range being post-war and being British vehicles, this is obviously American and World War II. Were used by the British, but I think this is clearly meant to be an American one. It's actually, as you can see for a start, these are all quite small, noticeably smaller than the Superfast range, obviously in line with keeping with the normal Matchbox range of this era when they were literally Matchbox sized. But yeah, nicely detailed, I have to say, for the size. There have been a few little sort of liberties taken with it. There's no bumper at the front. One thing these American half-tracks all had was either a big winch at the front or an anti-ditching roller that stuck out of the front, so they've obviously decided to eliminate that. There's also no seating whatsoever inside the back. These would have had kind of rows. They were mainly used as troop carriers, so they would have had a row of seats down either side, which Matchbox have decided to kind of miss out. Mostly they were armed with at least one machine gun, usually several. I can forgive Matchbox for missing that out. It would have been absolutely tiny in this scale. And to be fair, like I said, they weren't all armed, so it's not too bad in that front. The sort of little cutouts at the back are slightly odd as well. The real one wouldn't have had those. And also, there's obviously no suggestion of a door there, which the real one would have had. The other thing is the real vehicle, the shape of the tracks is quite sort of distinctive. Now, Matchbox have obviously just simplified that quite a bit with putting the sort of front and rear sort of wheels there. But to be fair to them, they have replicated the actual quite complex suspension really well, I have to say, considering that this is really, really tiny. I think Matchbox has done a really good job of it. They've also included the sort of fold-down armoured covers for the windscreen. For the side doors. They've actually missed out the one for the windscreen, as it happens. You've got the side-mounted jerry can carriers. You've got the shovel mounted on the side, and then round the other side. Actually, no, they haven't done anything on the other side. But again, you've got the jerry can carrier. But yeah, unusual vehicle really for Matchbox to start with, but really pleased that they did. As I say, it's my all-time favourite military vehicle. And I think overall, considering the size that they're dealing with, and obviously the technology of the sort of late 50s, I think they did a pretty good job. So that is, I have to say, straight from the start, that's my favourite vehicle from the range. So that's the M3 half-track personnel carrier. Now the second vehicle, this was also introduced in 1958, is the other Second World War vehicle and another American vehicle, and that's the Duck W, the GMC Duck W to give it its full title, amphibious truck. Very widely used by the Americans and by the British, and You could kind of, this one I suppose does kind of cross into sort of post-war usage as well. The British, amongst a lot of other armies, used them for years after the Second World War. And as it has no markings whatsoever, it could conceivably pass as a post-war British one. But I like to think of it as a World War II one. Again, pretty small model, but nicely detailed. They've decided to miss out the windscreen, which isn't terrible because they did have ones that folded flat. I have seen pictures of a Duck W that didn't have any kind of windscreen at all. The proportions, I have to say, I think they've nailed. I think that looks really good. And they've even done the sort of front wheels covered, rear wheels uncovered, which you often saw. Sometimes you saw them with no covers at all, or sometimes, like with this one, a bit of a mix, or with all of them covered. But they've decided, maybe for simplicity's sake, I don't know, but I actually think it looks pretty good. They've managed to include, at the back, the winch. I have to say, being sort of nitpicking slightly, the spare wheel and the jerrycan holders are the wrong way round. They would normally be obviously opposite sides of the vehicle, but that's a pretty minor little comment. And on the front here, they've even moulded the splashboard that could be folded up for when it was like driving down into the water. Yeah, another favourite military vehicle of mine. Now, one thing I will point out at this stage, just sort of talking about sort of future videos that I want to be doing, because vehicles like the Duck W, the M3 half-track have been done by various different diecast manufacturers over the years, what I'd like to do is a video that solely focuses on one vehicle type and then look at how different manufacturers have done it over the years. But as I say, that's to come in the future. I just thought I'd sort of mention that. And the American half-track and the Duck W are certainly two of the vehicles I'd like to do a video on. So there we go. So that's the Duck W. And then the last one for 1958, and this is where we move into sort of British vehicles and sort of ones that would have been contemporary for the time. And it's the Saracen armoured personnel carrier, manufactured by Alvis. It's a 6-wheel drive, little machine gun turret on the top. It does turn. This one does at least have doors moulded in the back. Obviously, they don't open. But again, details sort of pretty nice. The Saracen would be quite a familiar vehicle for a number of years, widely used in Northern Ireland, amongst other places. And Matchbox, Alvis, did 4 different military vehicles on this same 6-wheel chassis. And Matchbox actually did all of them in one way or another. So there's the Saracen. Later on, we'll come to the Saladin armoured car, which is also part of this range. In the Supervast video that I did previously, I covered the little Alvis Stalwart that they did. And then the last vehicle, probably a little bit more obscure, but it was a military one, and that was the Alvis Salamander airport crash tender. Now, Matchbox did a vehicle that, whilst they didn't call it that, it's clearly based on it. I do have one, I haven't got it to hand at the moment. It needs a little bit of work, needs a couple of parts, replacement parts ordering for it. But yeah, so Matchbox actually did all 4 of the Alvis military vehicles that were on this chassis. So yeah, so that's the Saracen personnel carrier. And then the rest of the vehicles kind of all came out the following year, 1959. Now, the half-track was available through till 1966. Saracen a year earlier, 65. And the Duck W actually quite short-lived. That kind of only lasted till 62. But in 59, they introduced another one that's kind of based, it should be pointed out, sorry, I'll just go back to the Saracen. That's one of the vehicles that Dinky did in their range. And that's the first of, as I say, several from the Matchbox range that are clearly based on Dinky's. This being the second one. Now, Matchbox just call it, is it the 10-ton pressure refueler? It is actually a Leyland Hippo. That's the actual vehicle it's based on. I will also at this point out that, not all of my vehicles are in perfect condition. I must admit, when I was getting these out ready to do my video, I was a little bit shocked at just how bad a couple of them were. They're all right, but certainly paintwork-wise, there's a couple that I really could do with replacing at some point. You can see the transfer's kind of a bit battered on this one as well. But yeah, so again, pretty nice model. Again, obviously very, very small. No working features on this one, but there really aren't any that they could do. But it's very nicely done, nice and in proportion. And this is one of only a handful of vehicles from this range that actually had decals of any kind. So you've got the American half-track with the star on the bonnet, this with the RAF roundel on the top, and then there's an ambulance later in the series which we'll come to shortly, which obviously had red crosses on it. So yes, that's the Leyland Hippo pressure refueler. As I say, that was quite a short-lived model, only lasting until 62. Sorry, 61. Just check my notes. 61 that was only available too. So that must have been, I think, that's the most short-lived model of the series. So the next one, also I'll say 59. This one actually available till 62. So another fairly short-lived model. Now Matchbox call this the General Service Lorry, but it is actually an AEC Militant. So it's a sort of heavy-duty cargo truck. Unfortunately, although the paintwork's not too bad on this one, unfortunately the tow hook has broken off on mine. It is quite fragile on these models, it has to be said. But yeah, generally it's not in sort of terrible condition. So yeah, it's a heavy-duty sort of six-wheel drive cargo truck, sort of used for a number of years by the British Army. The rear cover doesn't come off, but it is completely open backed. You can see I've also kind of missed out a bit of the paint sort of on the very back there, but you know, it's not really that visible, to be fair. But yeah, it's quite a nice model. Now all the vehicles, with the exception of the pressure refueler, are done in this same sort of green. The only sort of little details picked out are things like headlights, and in this case they've also decided to do the front bumper. So there's minimal details, but to be honest, they don't really need to be. And most of them have either have these black wheels. There's a couple that, as we've seen with the half track and the Duck W and the tanker, that had grey. But yeah, generally just have these basic plastic wheels. But kind of they were the same as what the normal range had at the time as well. So yeah, so that's the AEC Militant. The next one, it's the Austin K9 water tanker. Another one that's kind of a copy of a vehicle from the Dinky range. Really nicely done. No markings on this one. Well, there's no markings on all of them really, apart from, I say, the RAF tanker and the half track. But yeah, very nicely done. Kind of miniature version of the Dinky. Now this model was available until 63, so another fairly short-lived model, only 4 years it kind of stuck around for. It's got a little spare wheel there behind the cab. Nice detail again. You've got kind of the doors at the back of the tank there, and the little filler cap on the top. So there we go. That's the Austin K9 water tanker. And the next one we've got is the one I kind of mentioned earlier, the only other one that has any decals of any kind. That's now I think they just call it a service ambulance. Yeah, it actually says Ford 3-ton 4x4. So there you go. It kind of gives away what it is. So it is kind of another one that's based on a Dinky toy from the range. Obviously, the Dinky toy version, being bigger, has opening rear doors. This one doesn't. I should mention as well that these are replacement stickers that I've got for it. The one I bought, obviously all these were bought second hand by myself. Obviously this one came with no stickers on it, but you know, being an ambulance, you've kind of got to have the red crosses on it. So I just bought a couple of replacement ones, which is why they look in sort of fairly good condition. This was a vehicle that would have been, obviously the cab is clearly based on a sort of civilian vehicle, but on like a sort of toughened chassis. They tended to, although this one doesn't have it, tended to have a little, like they call it a hip ring in the top of the cab, for someone to sort of stand up out of. But yeah, so it is kind of a commercial type cab, but on like a 4-wheel drive chassis and with an ambulance body. There were truck versions of this as well that the British Army used. So yes, that's the Ford 3-ton service ambulance. And that was available till 64. Now this next one, it's an example of reusing the cab and the chassis from the water tanker, and this is the Austin K9 radio truck. Now this was available till 65. Now it's a real shame that Dinky didn't actually follow suit and copy Matchbox in this case, because they could have obviously reused the cab of their water tanker to do this, because it would have looked really nice in the larger scale. There were sort of several versions of this truck that the British Army used. I think there was like a general service version as well, with just like a sort of canvas tilt on the back. But yeah, radio truck, it's a nice vehicle. It's a bit different as well to have like a radio truck as part of your lineup. Nice detail, ladder on the back, vent on the side, things like that. Yeah, sort of nice little one. And again, they just picked out the headlights on this one. So yeah, that's the Austin K9 radio truck, and that was available through till 65. Start a new row with that one, put it there. Now, this next one, this is probably the only one that you could say is a slight crossover to the civilian range. I kind of think they must have done a civilian version of this, but it's the Land Rover. And looking at this, I would say, and given the period, it's a Series 1, although it could potentially be a Series 2. They both had the headlights in the middle there. But yeah, just a basic Land Rover, open top, but with a windscreen. This one was actually the most expensive one that for me to buy. Cost me all of £8, which I know isn't a huge amount, but most of the others cost me kind of less than a fiver each. The condition of that does, the condition of some of them does reflect that, but yeah, it's a nice Land Rover. The biggest problem with the Land Rover is no issue with the model itself, other than scale-wise, it's way oversized compared to the others. I mean, if you look at it compared to the tanker truck, for example, these are big vehicles, and the Land Rover kind of dwarfs it. So, these were obviously made to fit a certain size box, and the Matchbox will have made them as large as possible. It does have a tow hook, although there's nothing in this range for it to tow. But as I say, I'm pretty sure there must have been a civilian version of this. There's probably numerous trailers that could tow. So yeah, so I think the Land Rover, oh, it is a Series 2, there you go, Land Rover Series 2, should have checked that before, shouldn't I? There we go, so that's the Land Rover. And the Land Rover was available till 65. And then this next one is probably the one I've got that's in the worst condition. It's another one that is based on a dinky model, and that's the Scamell Explorer recovery truck. I must admit, when I got this one out, I was really quite shocked at just how bad it was. I knew it was a bit weather beaten and sort of play worn and that, but yeah, it's pretty bad. But it is complete at least. It does have its hook at the back. These were big, tough, very slow but very powerful vehicles, based on the Scamell Pioneer, which was its predecessor from World War II. So yeah, widespread service as like a big chunky sort of recovery vehicle. Nicely done, really. As I say, nice sort of detail again on it. We've got sort of the boom doesn't move. I'd say the hook obviously swings, but yeah, that's it. You can see it's pretty bad in the back, to be honest. So that is one I do need to kind of look at replacing at some point. But yeah, it's fair to say these aren't rare models to find. You can sort of find them pretty easily at toy fairs, on eBay and the like. It's just a matter of getting around to replacing it at some point. I guess there've always been other priorities, other things that you'd rather spend your money on when you've technically already got one at home. But yeah, so that's the Scamell Explorer, and that was another one that was available through till 65. Now, this next one, another contemporary vehicle, and I think it's the only one, yeah, he says, quickly glancing at the others, that actually has a figure. I'm assuming the figure is, yeah, it must be original because it does have a peg for him to sit on. It's the Daimler Ferret Scout Car. Very nicely done, this. Yeah, just says Ferret Scout Car underneath. Spare wheel mounted on the side. Proportions look really good on this. There's nothing picked out in silver on this one, but then there doesn't really need to be. Yeah, sort of, I suppose with it having a big gaping hole in it, they felt obliged to kind of put a figure inside it. Yes, that's the Daimler Ferret. Now, the Ferret was available, that was through till 66. So this one and the last couple I'm going to show you were the last ones kind of available within the range. As I say, 66 is when the actual range stopped. So yeah, so that's the Daimler Ferret. Now this next one, it's another copy of a dinky, but it's certainly by far the biggest and most impressive model in the set. And it's the Thornycroft Antar tank transporter with Centurion tank. Now these were only available together, you couldn't buy them separately. I think that's the same as with the dinky set, you could only buy the two of them together. However, we will look at the vehicles separately. Really nicely detailed, you can see on the front there, it even has the Antar logo moulded into the front. Headlights picked out, but I think that's the only detail. Trailer is permanently fixed to the cab, as it is with the dinky one. Winch also nicely moulded there between the sort of, I guess they're the sort of ballast boxes. I think the only real shame with this is, I guess it's just because of the scale, they had to make some kind of concessions, is that the ramps don't fold. Obviously on the dinky one, they have ramps that kind of fold down so you can drive the tank on the back. But on this one, they've kind of compromised and sort of had the ramps permanently down, but not so much that they interfere with kind of pulling it along. So it's absolutely fine from that point of view. Other than that, it's a pretty nice model. As I say, it's by far the biggest from the range. And then to go with it, a tank that has been done by numerous manufacturers, and probably another vehicle that I'll do a separate video on to show kind of as many different models as I've got that have been covered by different manufacturers. And that's the Centurion tank. So very much the British Army's main battle tank of the time. Now this one is missing its tracks, and they're quite often missing the tracks. However, because of how they've done it, with the sort of metal wheels kind of moulded here, and you've got the bazooka plate along the side, at least it's not too obvious that it's missing its tracks. Now, one thing from the Corgi Juniors video I did, talked about their Centurion, which of course dates from the 70s, so you're talking, getting on for at least 10, 15 years after this one. But also talking about a couple of the vehicles from the Matchbox Superfast range, is the fact that they did black plastic turrets and a black plastic gun. Well, this shows that back in the 50s, it was possible to do them in metal and possible to make it so they all matched like the real vehicle would. I'm guessing it was done in the later ones with plastic just as a cost-saving exercise, but it's nice at least that on this Centurion, Matchbox have done it with a metal turret and a metal gun barrel. There's another one where there's a few paint chips. I think this one cost me 30p though a number of years ago, so I mean I can't really complain from the condition. And to be fair, with it having no tracks, it is being carried on the transporter like that. There we go. We'll just move that part of that one up the front. And then the last one, this is the other member of the Alvis family, and that's the Saladin armoured car. Now this one, it did take me a while to kind of eventually pick up. It's not a rare model, but however, in unboxed condition, they are regularly missing the gun barrel. It's a real weak point, and you can see even on this one, it is slightly bent. I daren't even attempt to sort of straighten that. I think it'll just snap clean off. It's a nice model, does have a turning turret. And this is another model that's been done by a few different manufacturers. It's not one that Dinky did, I have to say. But yeah, it's been done by a few. Crescent Toys, Corgi Toys did one, plus a few others. But yeah, it's a very nice one. But yeah, as I say, in unboxed condition, it's very difficult to pick up in kind of complete condition without paying like, a ridiculous amount for it anyway. But I've got one. I suppose eventually I would like to pick one up that's complete, and got like a straight gun and everything. But for now, it'll do, and it does at least mean I've got the full collection. So yes, that's the Saladin. Now the Saladin lasted till 67. That's I think, just checking my notes, that's actually the last one from the range that was available. The Centurion and the tank transporter and the half track and the Ferret, yeah, they all lingered into 66. This one stayed on for a further year for some reason on its own. And then, as I say, after 67, that's when the range stopped. There was also a gift set, as you can see at the back there, which included most of the vehicles. I think there actually were a couple of different versions of the gift set, with some of the vehicles being slightly different. I know one of them, as you can see on that one, includes the half track, but I've seen a picture of another one that doesn't. Basically all the vehicles in it are British ones. Both of them included this one. Obviously that's the kind of main attraction of the series, if you like. Those go for some quite considerable amounts of money now. I think they're not the easiest to find, sort of complete and in good condition boxes or anything like that. So yeah, so there was a gift box. But yes, that's it. So that's the Matchbox military range from sort of the late 50s till the mid to late 60s. Obviously, it was only a couple of years after that Matchbox started introducing Superfast. These models, never mind the fact they're too small, but obviously they just wouldn't have suited the Superfast wheels anyway. So it's kind of good that they moved on from there, and obviously then decided to do their own thing with different military models. So yes, that's the Matchbox military range. Technically, I suppose you could call it the Lesney military range, as they were still had Lesney on them at that point. And as I say, that was produced from 1958 through to 1967. So in future videos, I think obviously, the last few I've done have all been kind of based around military subjects. And I have got plenty of other military subjects to do, so if that's the kind of thing you enjoy, don't worry, there's plenty more where that came from. Got your Battle Kings, got your Dinky military, Corgi military, all kinds of other stuff like that. But I thought I fancied doing something a little bit different for maybe the next couple of videos. We'll see how it goes. In my introduction video, I mentioned that in the last couple of years, I've started getting back into collecting Matchbox. I don't just mean military stuff, I mean just the normal Matchbox range. And that's really, well, any era, I suppose, but specifically the late 70s through to kind of some of the modern stuff, because I quite like a lot of the modern stuff they've done. And I've collected quite a few together. They're actually still on the cards. and I've kind of been holding off opening them all up because I thought actually it'd be quite fun to do them on a video. So I might do a big Matchbox unboxing video. Now don't get excited, there's probably nothing in the video that's massively rare or anything like that. I just hope it's something that you might be interested to see. So yeah, that's one of the ones I'm planning on doing soon. And other kind of videos based on other maybe Matchbox models. And as I say, maybe just take a break from the military stuff for a while. But as I say, don't worry, we will be coming back to it. So yeah, we'll leave it there for now. So please do like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers, bye.